So what if the price of perfect memory was your spontaneity? Imagine you're having a genuine, unguarded conversation and you say something slightly controversial. Maybe you laugh too loudly. It's a human moment. But now imagine the person across from you is wearing smart glasses. Now they may not be recording, but they could be at any moment. Does the conversation change? Do you hold back? Even just a little? Because this subtle anxiety, this behavioral shift when we suspect we're being watched, is actually a psychological phenomenon. It's called social cooling, and it's about to become an everyday, real-world experience. So earlier this year, I was looking at purchasing some smart glasses, mostly because I wanted to be able to have a discrete teleprompter that I could use on the go. You see, I have memory issues and trouble staying on point in a lot of conversations, especially when I'm talking, so I thought maybe the solution would be smart glasses. But what I found when I was doing my research was an entire industry racing to put artificial intelligence and cameras on billions of faces. They are betting that we are willing to trade our privacy for the superpower of perfect recall. And it's moving much faster than the conversation about what it means to wear a computer that sees what you see and hears what you hear. So in this episode today, we're not just looking at the gadgets, we're looking at the trade-offs, because the market is exploding with millions of these devices that are shipping this year alone. But we need to look past the hype, because we're gonna follow the data from the moment you capture a memory through the apps into the cloud and into the hands of data brokers you probably have never even heard of. We're going to explore the very real risk of inference, what these devices know about you, even if you've never pressed record. We'll look at what happens to our brains when we outsource our memory. This is actually a concept called cognitive offloading. And we're going to confront the uncomfortable social fallout. How do you trust someone when you don't even know if they're recording you or not? And I'm not here to give you a list of rules because the rules actually haven't been written for any of this. We're here to ask the hard questions about the new social contract that we're still drafting in real time. And by the end, I want to talk about the glasses that I actually purchased, these babies, which are the Even Reality G1s, and why I went with these rather than the other tech that actually has way more built into it. And I want to lastly talk about the specific red lines that, if crossed, will make me put those type of glasses back in the box. So first and foremost, let's start by understanding what these things actually are and why the tech giants are betting everything that you'll be wearing one very soon. When we talk about AI wearables right now, we're talking about in late 2025, and we're mainly talking about smart rings, pendants, and most critically, the new glasses. And that's where the new frontier actually is, in my opinion. You can split the glasses into two camps. You have display only. These project text in your field of view. Think of it like a private teleprompter. They are relatively low risk because they usually don't have any cameras pointed at the world. Then there's the camera plus. This is where the industry is actually focused. These look like normal glasses, but they pack cameras, microphones, and AI assistants that can see what you see. The scale of the shift is significant. It feels like we're past the breaking point or the tipping point right now. And according to the International Data Corporation, the IDC, the combined market for AR/VR headsets, these new smart glasses is expected to grow about 39% in 2025. That's hitting 14.3 million units. But here's the critical detail. IDC actually predicts the smart glasses slice alone of this will grow by 247% this year as companies race to put AI on your face. Meta right now is dominating that by 60%, and that's just in the second quarter of 2025. And believe it or not, we've seen this pattern before, especially in the early days of the smartphone. And the technology is becoming seamless. It's awkward to talk to your glasses in public, so companies are developing things like neural wristbands that read the electrical signals in your fingers so that you can control the glasses with tiny invisible gestures. The Meta display glasses do this incredibly well, it looks like from reviews. But here's the critical tension. The more seamless the technology becomes, the easier it is to forget that these devices are constantly sensing. The companies selling these emphasize they aren't always recording, but that really misses the point. The value isn't just that you're recording, it's the data trail that you actually leave behind. And that brings us to the fundamental question, the one that we rarely ask. Where does the data actually go? Now, let's follow a single moment from your face to the cloud and see who actually owns your reality. So you put your smart glasses on. You decide to record a quick video of, let's say, your dog. The path that video takes, that's a crucial one. There's a big distinction between on-device processing and cloud processing. And the marketing for this makes this really confusing almost on purpose. If it happens on device, the raw data stays local. It's generally more private. But AI requires massive computational power, so for anything heavy like sophisticated image recognition or translation, and certainly things like long-term storage, the data usually requires going to the cloud. This is a crucial moment because once your data actually hits the cloud, then copies exist, logs exist. And if copies exist, they can be accessed later by the company, by partners, or potentially by governments. And this isn't just about the video of your dog, it's about the metadata. When you recorded it, where you were when you were recording it, maybe even who else was with you or nearby you when you were recording it. And you may ask yourself, why does this matter? Because the business model for many of these companies isn't selling you the hardware, it's leveraging your data to predict your behavior. We actually have already seen this play out. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has actively brought actions against data brokers, companies like Xmode and Mobile Walla and Gravy Analytics for selling sensitive location data. They found that these brokers were selling data trails showing people visiting medical facilities or houses of worship or shelters. That data came from seamless, innocent apps on your phone. Now imagine that level of tracking, but instead of just your location, it includes what you're looking at. Now, most policies actually grant wide use by default. Opt-outs often reduce features. When a major new AI feature is launched, companies update their terms of service, and buried in the text, I'm sure you've all seen it, is often permissions to use your images and voice to improve the service. Heard that one before? They do this because they need it to train their AI. The tension between convenience and privacy is real. But what happens when this technology collides with sensitive moments in your real life? Let's take a scenario that we all face and see how the exact same moment can have two radically different endings depending on where the data goes. Let's look at a high-stakes scenario. You're at a doctor's appointment. It's complicated. You use your smart glasses to capture a 30-second audio clip of the doctor explaining their medical regimen. Now, this is generally a helpful use case, right? But let's look at the two paths that this data actually follows. Now, you have path one. This is the shared and persistent path. In the first path, the app automatically backs up the audio to the cloud. A transcription service runs also in the cloud. Now you have a text of a medical conversation tied to time and the location of the clinic. Now, later, a coaching feature asks permission to share the derived health data that you have with a partner company, and then you tap Allow. Now, here's the crucial distinction. In the US, HIPAA protects the data your doctor holds. It generally doesn't cover the health data you upload to a consumer wearable app. Now, the FTC realized that there was this massive gap. So in 2024, they expanded the health breach notification rule. This rule now explicitly covers health apps and wearables that are not under HIPAA. Crucially, the FTC clarified that a breach isn't a hack. It includes unauthorized sharing of your data. If they leak or share your identical health data without explicit consent, then you have to be notified. Now, that's better than nothing. But it happens after the fact. Because in that scenario, your private medical moment is now persistent and shared and vulnerable. Now let's look at path number two, which is local and ephemeral. Now the second path, you've captured the audio, but you've configured the app to use on-device transcription only. You've turned off partner sharing. And critically, you've actually set up an auto-delete window so the audio and the transcript are purged after 7 days. Now that's the same moment, the same technology, but two entirely different outcomes for your privacy. Now this highlights the control we have when we actively record something. But what about the rest of the day? Because the reality is, even if you never actually hit record, the inferences actually start stacking up. And what they reveal about you is startling. We tend to worry about video and audio recording, but the quieter risk is the one that's much harder to control, and this is inference. Now, a normal day wearing an AI device throws off a constant stream of data exhaust. Location pings, motion sensors, heart rate from something like a Ring, proximity hits, those things that are scanning for nearby Bluetooth devices. Now, none of this actually looks like surveillance, but when you stitch it all together, it paints an incredible detailed picture of your life. So let's walk through a hypothetical day and what that looks like. So at 8 a.m., you commute. The glasses log your home and office location. Your smart ring, it shows your resting heart rate is elevated. The inference there is you're stressed or you didn't sleep well. Now, 12:30 p.m. comes along and you take a lunch walk. You walk past a specific medical building, let's say a therapy office, and your GPS logs the proximity. And maybe your heart rate spikes just slightly. Now, the inference is a possible visit to a sensitive location. Now let's move on through the day. At 4 p.m., you have a meeting. Now, you use the live caption feature. The metadata actually shows the duration and frequency of the meeting, and the inference there is your work cadence and possibly even your role with the company. Now, none of this at all is definitive proof of anything. It's just pattern math. But these patterns are incredibly valuable to advertisers and insurance companies and data brokers. Regulators have warned for years that this derived data, especially when combined with location, can be modeled in ways that people don't expect. The technology is designed to infer your state of mind, your intentions, and your attention. That is the entire point of ambient computing. It anticipates your needs, but to anticipate your needs, it has to watch you consistently. So we're using these devices to help us remember. But what happens to our minds when we rely on external technology to do all of our remembering for us? Are we augmenting our intelligence or are we just outsourcing it? There's this concept in psychology called cognitive offloading. It's the act of using an external tool to reduce the mental burden of a task. We write shopping lists and we set calendar reminders, and AI wearables are the ultimate cognitive offloading tool. But researchers are increasingly looking at the downside of that. This is sometimes termed digital amnesia. It's the experience of forgetting information that you trust a digital device to store and remember for you. If the glasses instantly recall the name of the person you just met, your brain doesn't have to work to encode that information. That does sound kind of nice though, doesn't it? I'm just saying. The question on this though is, does the reliance weaken our own cognitive abilities over time? Now, research suggests that when we offload the effort of memory, we might be sacrificing the depth of processing required to turn information into actual knowledge. In fact, recent fMRI studies suggest that when people offload memories, it leads to a weakened neural representation of the information. It actually looks similar to deliberately forgetting in the brain. I mean, it's a real paradox. The technology designed to augment our minds might, if used passively, actually diminish them. So, are we trading cognitive effort for convenience? And if so, what do we lose in the transaction? Because this internal impact is profound, but the external impact, the collision between personal technology and public space, is immediate and abrasive. This is where the technology is creating a whole new set of social problems, the biggest of which might be the erosion of trust. So when you're wearing a camera on your face, you literally change the dynamic of every interaction you have. It used to be easy to tell if somebody was actually recording you. They had a phone and they would just hold it up. Now, when you have cameras on your face, that makes it nearly invisible. And this invisibility, it creates a vacuum of etiquette. We simply don't have an established social norm for this type of situation. And in the absence of norms, people assume the worst. And this brings us all the way back to social cooling. If you think you might be watched, you behave differently You speak a little less freely, you perform. This is related to a concept from surveillance theory called the panopticon effect. The idea that the mere possibility of being watched at any time leads to self-policing. So are we building a digital panopticon in our own social lives? Now, a lot of people suggest rules for using these devices. Things like ask for consent in small spaces. And these are fine guidelines, but in my opinion, are they realistic? Because the whole point of this technology is to be seamless. It's not designed to ask permission. The tech industry's answer is this thing called the indicator light, a small LED that turns on when it's recording. But does a tiny LED really equal consent? Instead of prescribing rules that may not be followed, maybe we need to ask even harder questions about the power dynamics at play. And I'll give you an example. Who holds the power when one person is wearing a recording device and the other isn't? Like if your boss is wearing smart glasses during a performance review. Do you feel comfortable asking them to take that off? And what happens in sensitive environments like classrooms or confidential meetings? The technology companies want to put the burden on the user to behave ethically. But they're the ones actually building these devices. They're the ones controlling the mechanism and making it nearly invisible. So is it ethical to design a device that makes it easy to violate social trust? These are the big questions that we need to grapple with, because if you are considering buying one of these, how do you choose the right tool for the job while trying to also minimize your exposure to the messy reality of things today? Now, at the beginning of this, I told you that I went with the Even Realities G1s, the glasses that I'm currently wearing. Me being a really big tech enthusiast, I like tech that has a lot of stuff that's pushed into it. So it's weird that I chose these glasses, but I actually had been doing some reviews on the Meta Ray-Ban glasses without the actual smart displays. Now, they had cameras and they had audio, but they don't have the display that's actually on there. And during some of the reviews, one actually caught my attention where this person was doing a cooking class. And even though they were allowed to record in the cooking class, they said that they could see people murmuring around them and felt uncomfortable because they were wearing glasses that had cameras on their face. Now, if you looked at the comment section, it was lit up with people saying, of course this is uncomfortable, of course this doesn't make any sense. And not that I lack any social etiquette, but it did make me think like, man, I want glasses that I would feel comfortable walking into any environment in. And I don't think I'd feel comfortable wearing the glasses. So the G1s, in my opinion, are the best options that are out there. I also looked at Rokoid glasses and they had cameras on them as well. So I just didn't want that perception out there, especially if you're looking at something like Meta. I mean, Meta does have their issues when it comes to data privacy to begin with, but in the end, I went with the Even Realities G1 just because they're just a display. I wanted something that minimized the amount of attention that I was getting to my phone, even though I still use my phone. It has the teleprompter feature, which I'm using currently, and it does have AI on it, but I have to tap it to be able to activate it. So it just kind of minimized what the glasses are. Also, the weight of it. If anybody's used the Meta Quest and used the VR glasses, I thought that would be fantastic to actually work in. I was hoping that it would create this environment where I'm in a different place with 3 screens everywhere. And it did work pretty well for me, but after a while, that thing got heavy. So I didn't want the same things to happen with these display glasses. So these are super light. They are regular glasses. They are prescription, but it gives me everything that I need without being socially awkward when it comes to being in different environments. So that's honestly why I went with these instead of going with the glasses that actually have way more tech into it. Now, I started my journey with a specific problem. As I mentioned earlier, memory and focus during presentations. And based on the risk profile that we just walked through, I chose display-only glasses. Doesn't have a camera, as you can see, but the title of this episode asked a fundamental question. Is the technology helpful or exploitative? And it's complicated because the simple answer is it's both. It can be incredibly helpful, but the underlying business model is often built on data exploitation, and the design choices frequently prioritize seamlessness over social trust. The critical takeaway is that we must be intentional. We must demand better safeguards, and we gotta be aware of the inferences that we are constantly generating. This conversation is just the beginning, and the technology is moving fast. And with all this, I wanna hear from you. Where do you draw the line? Are these devices acceptable in the offices, in a classroom, in public or transit, or are they not acceptable anywhere at all? And how concerned are you about cognitive offloading? Are you worried about outsourcing your memory? Let me know in the comments. The technology, unfortunately, is here, but the rules of the road, those are ours still left to write. So subscribe for updates as we continue to track this space and more at the ARQIV. Thank you.